Good evening, everyone. My name's Eddie Harrold, and I'm welcoming you to How to Tap into Flow States. To begin tonight, let's just take a few minutes to let go of our day, relax, and prepare ourselves for optimal learning mentally and physically. So if you can, let your eyes close and release and relax the outer world for several minutes, and bring your mental attention to the flow of breath moving in and out through your nostrils. As you slow the breath down, release and relax any tension that your mind or body might bump into. Begin to slow down the inhale. Notice the space between the end of the inhale and the initiation of the exhale. And then exhale slower than you normally do and longer than you normally do by about 10%. Notice the gap or the space between the end of the exhale and the initiation of a fresh new moment on the next inhale. Just take about 5 to 10 more breaths here. Slowing the breath down. Noticing the gaps between inhale and exhale and inhale. Pushing the feet down into the floor and feeling support underneath you. Squeezing your thighs and feeling the strength of your legs to keep the lower body grounded. Release and relax the belly and the low back and allow them to be free of tension in this moment. Release and relax the mid-back area and the solar plex region of the body and allow that area to be free of tension, free of strife. Release and relax the heart and lungs, the upper chest and shoulders, the upper back and the back of the neck, free of tension and a free flow of awareness between the brain and the heart. During this webinar, I invite you to continually, during the experience, to slow the breath down, sit in optimal posture, and open up every single pore of your body to absorb this information of sight and sound. Honor the part of your mind that has brought you to this webinar, and any part of the mind that caused resistance or said you didn't have time or there was something else to do, gently put that on the back burner of your mind on simmer, and we'll deal with that later. And if you'd like to open your eyes, you can. If not, you can take in the information with your eyes closed. Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad to be with everyone today. I'm coming to you from beautiful Colorado. It's been a great day, lots of sunshine. It's been a great winter, and we're heading into spring. And I want to say hi to all my friends out there from California to New York, down to Florida, up to Chicago, down to Texas, and all the new friends I haven't met yet. I'm really excited about sharing this topic with you. It's something that I've been passionate about all my life, and it's really beginning to come to the foreground of a lot of different paradigms, this flow, and how can we create this flow and sustain this flow and be in that optimal space more often in our life. So welcome, everyone. So when we think about flow, flow is fundamentally a heightened state of awareness. It's a heightened sense of that you're self-aware. It's an optimal state of mental and physical merging, body-mind merging, where we're in the optimal state to manifest our intention almost instantaneously. For me, when I'm in flow, I feel an immense amount of power in those moments. I feel invincible, unstoppable. In those moments, usually there's a lot of chatter in my mind. Well, when we're in flow, there's no chatter. It's completely silent. There's nothing but space, and I am part of that space. And there is literally no resistance to what I'm trying to achieve. There's also a marked sense of huge creativity, where each moment is its own unique moment. And you're part of the creative process, where the part of our ego that constantly attaches ourselves to our victories or failures, it's disappeared. It's nowhere to be found. And we're in a maximum state of being human at that point. And when you combine this power mentally and physically with the silence and the creativity, we're in the maximum state of learning. We're in the maximum state of taking ourselves to another level of our skill sets. And that's just a, kind of a broad brush of what I'd like to teach you guys and ladies out there tonight. When you think about flow, first we have to traditionally get the context of the history of it. It first began with the Eastern mystical traditions. We had great saints and sages, who were living what we call this enlightened life, who had this unbelievable ability to live in peace and manifest their desires almost instantaneously. And when you think about the mystical traditions, you're thinking about folks being in a seated meditation posture, and they're in this deep state of contemplation or absorption into themselves. And not only that, but these folks apparently, according to the ancient texts, lived their whole life that way, 24/7. They were always in flow. They required very little sleep. They were always in a heightened state of awareness, but they were completely relaxed. They would take, say, 20 to 30-minute short yogic sleeps or yogic naps every 24 hours. So almost their whole life, they were awake. They didn't spend much time in the collective unconscious. So they were in a constant state of being awake in the dream in our mind of our life. And nothing was wasted. There wasn't any wasted effort at all. They didn't really indulge themselves in the thinking world. It was almost as if they knew what was going to happen and merged with it instantaneously, moment by moment by moment. Amazing stories that we hear coming from the Eastern traditions in regard to flow. And now we begin to see the neuroscientists of the West, and they're speaking of flow. And when I first heard about it in the 70s, I heard about it through athletics. I heard about it in what you'd call the zone. You would go for a run or a bike ride, and you were in this zone. And this zone was this place where, an athlete could tap into unbelievable strengths and not be distracted by the part of his mind or her mind that said, you can't do this. You've never done it before. All of that disappeared, and it was kind of like a mirage. And then something deeper begins to come to the surface and begin to do you rather than you do it. And now we see this flow that we traditionally saw held for athletics is now being taught in corporate America. And it's a seamless fit for corporate America. I mean, high-end athletics, we're all athletes, whether you're a competitive athlete or not. Just getting out of bed in the morning and making it to work and back, that's athletic in itself and in the most simplistic forms of movement. So when we think about flow is a natural extension of everything we're trying to be. And when we're at work and we're under stress, or there is time contractions or distance contractions, that's not flow. Your heart rate goes up, your blood pressure goes up, there's tension, there's poor communication with yourself, interpersonal, there's poor communication with others, and that just really ages us quickly, and we begin to question ourselves. And when we're questioning ourselves all the time, it's very debilitating to our sense of self, our self-esteem, our self-confidence. So flow in corporate America or in small businesses is something that I love to teach to folks, and I look forward to it tonight with you. So my story with flow, my first experience with flow that I can really remember occurred in 1994. I was a professional distance swimmer, and I was in a 22.5 mile swim race. And I can just remember the first 7 miles going very well. And between the 7th and 8th mile, things began to really break down, and there was immense pain. The water was 60 degrees, and my body began to shake. And I still was trying to swim. And between mile 8 and 14, it was just a brutal breakdown of my mental ego. And something inside of me kept moving me forward. And there was a voice in my head. I wanted to quit this swim literally 1,000,000 times. That's all I could think about, was making this pain go away. And something happened around mile 14 where that voice that was describing the pain to me within a half mile gradually let go. And I didn't know what flow was at the time, but I just know that all of a sudden I began to swim like I had never swam before in my life. It appeared to me that I had tapped into an unbelievable source of energy or fire in my pelvic bowl, and it was almost superhuman in its power over me. And I went from like 65 strokes a minute when things were going poorly around mile 13 and 14, and then between 14 and 15, my stroke rate came back up to 90, 100 strokes a minute. And my mind became instantaneously focused like a laser on every single stroke. But there was no strain. There was no stress. And I just felt like I had a bottomless supply of energy. And I was just so excited that for the next 7 miles, 7.5 miles, that I was going to have this deep experience with consciousness, or my mind, or my heart, or wherever you might find these types of conversations. But it was just the most amazing feeling. I felt invincible, unstoppable. And I would say to folks that I almost learned how to swim that day. Instead of my hands moving through the water, the molecules of the water began to move my hands. Instead of kicking my legs, the molecules of the water began to move my legs. I could visualize the cross-patterning sequences of the DNA inside my cells between my right shoulder and my left hip, and the left hip and my right shoulder. And this X formed an unbelievable power moving through the water that I had never experienced before, while at the same time, I was already past the furthest swim I had ever gone in my life. The furthest I had ever gone was 10 miles, and this race was 22.5. So I can remember finishing that race, and as I was approaching the finish line after 11 hours of swimming, I was so jacked up that in my mind, I wanted to swim around again. And I was dead serious about this. This is how addictive or autotelic would be the neuroscientific type of word, autotelic instead of addictive. This is how great it made me feel as a man, as a human being. And I couldn't wait to get more of it. And that was my first experience with flow, and just tearing down my mental perceptions, the relationship I had with individual moments in myself. It was identified by no fear of failure, no distraction, no thoughts or sound. There was just something inside me that had taken over the movement of what we call swim, and I was moving through this water at a further distance than I ever had in my life, faster than ever. And boy, it's something that I'm going to carry with me to my grave. And it was an amazing feeling. So my space-time perceptions of everything were gone. And it was just something that I want to give you guys some information on in the next few minutes. So at that point in my life, I didn't have a breath background, a yoga background, a meditation background. I was still a super competitive athlete, but I didn't have any of the Eastern traditions. And after that race, I was so sore for so long. I began to get involved in taking care of myself at a little deeper level. And I began to learn Hatha Yoga and Raja Yoga and some of the deeper traditions of what's really going on with us in our body mind. And I began to learn breath work. And the breath work that I learned from the masters of India and other teachers that they had in America, I hybrided that breath work that had never been done before into competitive athletics. And then finally now I'm taking these techniques into the workplace to increase states of flow in the mind. So this breath work that we're going to learn in a few minutes, it's really about setting the table for flow to occur, for flow to happen. And it just seems to refine our focus deeper and deeper and deeper. And we become lighter and lighter and lighter as we go deeper. And initially, when we start to go deeper in ourselves, we have that sensation that we're getting heavier, we're getting heavier, we're getting heavier. And the somewhat that is there on the surface, but what's actually happening is when you can hang in there with the experience, you're actually becoming lighter and lighter and lighter. And in that, it amplifies the learning process of the various departments of the brain. And more information can be distributed as more parts of the brain light up. And all of a sudden, the left prefrontal cortex will go silent, and the words and numbers start to disappear, and the flashcards in your head will start to move slow, even though the outside of your body could well be moving fast, or you could be at the computer so engrossed in what you're trying to achieve and create in work. It's just so curious that all of a sudden something inside you begins to take over the surface intention, and you can do amazing things in heightened states of creativity. So really, awareness will be jacked up, but at the same time, you're going to relax. Usually when we're relaxed, we don't think of it as a state of willpower. So when you think about willpower and relaxation, they usually are at the opposite ends of the seesaw. But when you're starting to get into flow with breath work, both of those will fundamentally be there for you. And there's also going to be a cardiovascular experience. The heart there is influencing the brain. And the breath work is uniquely designed in its own unique way to take us deeper and deeper inside ourselves as we let go of ourself, the part of ourself that we hold on to so desperately, which either consciously or unconsciously, let's face it, there's holes in that bowl. And the pranayama, the breathing, begins to heal those holes, whether consciously or unconsciously. Your container inside can hold more information. And as you can begin to hold more information in the present moment with a lower heart rate and a more relaxed, great things begin to happen in the mind-body-heart connection. When we're talking about flow in the Western sense, fundamentally what we're going to talk about is the secretion of 5 neurochemicals. And when these 5 neurochemicals are present in the brain, it's called flow. And the only time these 5 chemicals will show up in the brain is when we're in a state of flow. So the first one in my training that I like to share with folks is serotonin. And serotonin is a relaxation hormone. It's a feel-good hormone. And when you can breathe slowly, you can activate the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is part of the diaphragmatic breathing. And when serotonin becomes high, many, many good things happen that relax us into the present moment. And serotonin is a prerequisite for melatonin, which allows us to rest and reboot our system during the night. So having serotonin present in the flow process is what I like to connect with first by controlling the breath. Because when you're controlling the breath, you're basically tapping into your autonomic nervous system. You know, the accelerator and the brake. The accelerator, the hot part, is your adrenaline and cortisol. That spikes your heart rate up, raises your blood pressure, and increases prefrontal cortex activity. All those things you feel associated with that. But there's also the other side of the autonomic branch, which is your rest and digest, your serotonin, your parasympathetic branch of your autonomic nervous system, which is marked by deeper states of relaxation. It's a slowing down of the pace of the thoughts in your head, and you have a greater control over the thought process. Typically, you would see the high beta waves in the brainwave activity in the cortisol state. And when you start to allow the serotonin in, you'll move out of the beta, you'll move into lower waves of beta, and you'll move into an alpha state, which is marked by a creativity, a curiosity, your ability to think outside of the box. So the serotonin to me is the preparation for the other four neurochemicals of the brain to start to gel together to create this flow state where you're almost escaping time-space contractions. Dopamine and norepinephrine are two neurochemicals that play a huge role in regard to allowing the brain to shift from doing to being. And circuits will start to integrate and work together that normally don't. Dopamine is another feel-good hormone. When that's present, there's a sense that you feel really good about yourself. And the normal conversation that we have in the left prefrontal cortex, which is marked by our normal cognitive function, our normal rational function, how we analyze and rationalize and conceptualize how the moment's coming. Well, a lot of that's coming from our subconscious programming, things that have been placed there from the activities and experiences from our childhood all the way to tonight's webinar. So to some degree, we want to shut down the left prefrontal cortex because it interferes with flow. And as you begin to work with dopamine and norepinephrine, you begin to feel more. Now you begin to feel more, but the brain itself begins to go more online. Anandamide is another neurochemical, and this promotes lateral flow of information. Lateral flow meaning that your right prefrontal cortex and your left prefrontal cortex are separated by your corpus callosum. And that's a series of matted nerves that take this one brain and actually separate it into two. And when the anandamide is present, it strengthens the electrical flow of the corpus callosum, and it allows more lateral information or communication or talking to take place from the left and right prefrontal cortex, which most of the time don't even know there's anything on the other side. The right very rarely talks to the left, and the left very rarely talks to the right. They have their own gig, they have their own set of ideas and foundations, and they usually work independently of each other. Well, when the corpus callosum becomes activated, what happens is what you normally describe as pleasure or pain, happiness or sadness, or love or hate, normally these emotions and thoughts are the opposite ends of the seesaw. Well, when anandamide becomes present, the left and right prefrontal cortex and the corpus callosum begin to exchange information. You begin to see that those two, pain and pleasure, are actually the opposite ends of the same stick. Love, hate are the opposite ends of the same stick. Fear, strength, opposite ends of the same stick. And when you can begin to see that oneness, your mind will begin to focus with your brain like a laser on what you're trying to achieve in that moment and that moment only. The past will fall away. Whatever might happen in the future isn't here yet, and the hypothalamus of the brain is not concerned with that at that moment. It almost goes on sonar in silence. So this anatomine is a wonderful, wonderful neurochemical, which allows opposites to attract rather than polarize and move away from each other. And the last is endorphins. And endorphins are simply painkillers. They are natural opiates, neuropeptides in the brain that allow us to hang in there with the experience of pain longer before we shut it down. We begin to feel more and think less. Normally, when we feel more, I would say it would be accompanied by lots of thoughts. So in this state, with endorphins, painkillers, keeping your body temperature down, you're hanging in there with the experience. It's very important to hang in there with the experience before you say, ooh, I know what that is. You know, Einstein said, I'm no smarter than anybody else. I'll just hang in there with the problem longer. And that's a wonderful bumper sticker for when you're trying to get in the flow, because you're going to have to break down your old sense of self, your old ego, your old likes and dislikes. And to do that, to some degree, there's going to be some discomfort. There's going to be some resistance to that, either gentle resistance, moderate resistance, or there's going to be a vigorous resistance to this. So you must be able to hang in there and coach yourself through this. And this is where these amazing endorphins will begin to help you in regard to achieving that. Okay, so 5 neurochemicals: serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, anatomine, and endorphins. When this cocktail, the great neuroscientist Stephen Kotler talks about that cascade of chemicals or cocktails that come down from the brain. And it's just an amazing thing. So how do I get into this flow with more than just hope? You know, how do I go to work and try to tap into a flow state where I can do the most amazing work in something that I love to do with very little resistance to it? How can I go out into the athletic world and just blow the doors off the part of me that thinks I can't do it or somebody else is better than me? So what I'd like to do tonight is bring you into a light flow state, a deeper sense of self, and an enlightened sense or lightened sense of yourself. So I'm going to teach right now 4 breathing techniques in sequence. We'll practice these, then we'll go through an experience to set the table for flow, and then we'll allow you to sit with it for several moments and notice what it feels like. Okay? So step 1, diaphragmatic breathing, breathing through your nostrils. Breathing through your nostrils as slowly as you can, allowing the air to come up through the nasal turbines of the nostrils, up into the respiratory glands of the brain. And as the air comes in through the nostrils, the brain is going to secrete nitric oxide, which is a natural bronchial dilator, going to allow the lungs to expand fully and contract fully to exchange more oxygen and carbon dioxide. The nitric oxide also helps burn excessive bacteria away, or any excessive waste that's going to impair flow. So diaphragmatic breathing, breathing through the nostrils, is the most optimal way to give the brain what it wants first, while at the same time creating suction and pressure so that the diaphragm muscle, which separates the abdominal cavity from the chest cage, can press down vertically towards your low back as much as possible, giving you strong support in the low back and also activating the enteric nervous system, which is in the solar plexus, in which 95% of the serotonin is created for the use in the brain, and 50% of the dopamine comes from this enteric nervous system. And when you're breathing through your mouth, you're not getting optimal movement of the diaphragm in a vertical manner downward on the inhale. The diaphragm simply flattens east and west, and you're not getting that maximum use of the enteric nervous system. And also massaging the upper organs of the abdomen, which is your liver, gallbladder, and your stomach spleen. And there's a lot of energy inside these organs that we want to be able to tap into as athletes or corporate professionals. So tonight, what I'd like you to do is breathe through your nose as slowly as possible and see if you can let your exhale be longer than your inhale. Step 2 will be a technique from the yoga tradition called the ujjayi breathing, or ocean sounding breath in the throat, where we're going to contract the muscles and cartilage right above the trachea to create an audible tone which focuses the brain inward. the brain will start to introvert before it extroverts into what we're trying to achieve on our computer or out on our bike or out on our run or hike. Also, it prepares the inhale to be distributed internally by steaming the dry air and preparing it. It humidifies it to turn into a liquid. So the body doesn't have to do it. It actually takes place in the throat. So for those of you who this is new, here's how I want you to try this tonight. Is bring your right hand up to your face and pretend this is a mirror. And I want you to breathe through your mouth, close your eyes, and try to fog the mirror as if it was the palm of your hand. Go through a couple rounds of this with your eyes closed and try to use your brain and identify the tissues that are vibrating, making that neutral, audible sound that your mind is so drawn to. Now bring the hand down if you've located it. Now close your mouth, breathe through your nose, moving the diaphragm, and now add the contraction of the throat area and see if a sound forms, much like you're holding a conch shell up to your ear or a seashell, as if the ocean's off in the distance. And it should sound something like this. So keep your feet on the ground, stay grounded. Keep your thighs slightly contracted so you can sit up tall. And just take several rounds here of breathing through your nose, contracting the throat. And as you contract the throat, notice you're controlling the length, depth, and pace of the inhale and exhale. You have the ability to do that. And as you begin to do this, you have the innate ability to control the thoughts that you want to manifest. You can push away easier what you don't want to occur, the noise, the distraction, the self-sabotage. I can't do it. Now you'll notice that there's also almost a rhythm and tempo to this. There's a harmony to this. And this begins to satiate the parts of ourself that is normally tense, whether it be in the body or whether it's stifling communication in the brain. Use this technique. The next technique we're going to use is an internal breath retention. So after your inhale is complete, I'd like you to hold the breath in and stop breathing. Squeeze your belly, squeeze your buttock, and allow energy to form around the lower body, in the buttock and hips, in the organs of digestion, elimination, and assimilation. And when the need for breath becomes strong, not strained, but strong, slowly exhale through your nose with this ocean-sounding breath in your throat, and make sure you ride the exhale to completion. Don't bail out. No mouth exhales. If you exhale through your mouth, or if you're exhaling quickly through your nose, you've held too long. You don't need to hold that long. So let's go through several rounds here where we're breathing through our nose, we're holding the breath in, we're squeezing the buttock and belly, and then we're relaxing inside. Close your eyes, please, and just absorb this awareness. It is unique to you, even though we're all going through the same thing. Next technique, alternate nostril breathing. Alternate nostril breathing syncs the two prefrontal cortexes and changes our perception of time and amplifies the corpus callosum. It reboots the autonomic nervous system, the central nervous system, and it brings us into a heightened state of relaxation in the brain. So I'm going to use my right hand. I'm going to curl my first two fingers, and I have my thumb and ring finger at the ready. I'm going to take my thumb and close off my right nostril. I'm going to inhale slowly up my left nostril with an ocean sound. At the completion of the inhale, I'll take my ring finger, close off the left nostril, release my thumb pad, and exhale slowly out the right. At the completion of the exhale, I'll hold the breath out for just a moment, and then I'll inhale up the right nostril. And when the inhale is complete, I'll take the thumb pad, close off the right nostril, release the ring pad, and exhale slowly out the left nostril. At the base of the exhale, I'll hold the breath out for a moment. I'll then inhale again as slowly as possible, and I'll trace the awareness from my left nostril into my right prefrontal cortex. At the completion of the inhale, I'll close off the left, release the thumb, exhale right. When the exhale is complete, I'll hold the breath out for just a moment, a controlled pause. And then I'll inhale with an ocean sound again. I'll trace the energy from my right nostril into my left prefrontal cortex. And then I'll switch, close off the right, exhale left. One more round. Inhale, left nostril, slowly. Feel the diaphragm pressing down, the chest expand, fill the shoulders, close off, release, exhale right. Squeeze the belly, follow the exhale to completion, pause for a moment, create that gap, and then inhale right. Follow the information into the left prefrontal cortex. Close off the right, release the ring, exhale left. Hand comes down. Inhaling, ocean sound in your throat. Inhale through your nose, hold the breath in, squeeze your buttock and belly. Now let the energy build. Try to bypass that first call to exhale, as that's usually fear-based in the mind. On that second call to exhale, with an ocean sound, respect that, it's body-based. Let the carbon dioxide come out slower than you normally will, and hold the breath out for a moment. Inhale slowly. Hold the breath in. Squeeze your buttock and belly, and let energy build. Ignore the first call to exhale. Ignore the second call to exhale. And on the third call to exhale, exhale slowly through your nose with an ocean sound, and hold the breath out for just a moment. One more time. Inhale slowly, taking the breath down into the abdomen, letting these organs breathe, allowing the breath to rise up to the shoulders. Hold the breath in, squeeze the buttock and belly, keep your eyes and jaw soft. Bypass the first couple calls to exhale and let the pressure build. Keep lifting the ribs away from the hips. And then exhale slowly. Hold the breath out for a moment. Bring the right thumb up, back to alternate nostril. Inhale up the left nostril. At the completion of the inhale, close off the left, release the thumb, exhale right. Pause for a moment. Inhale right. Close off the right, release the ring, exhale left. Slowly follow the breath out and pause for a moment. Inhale again, up the left nostril into the right prefrontal cortex, and hold your mind in the vast space of the right prefrontal cortex. Close off the left, release the thumb, exhale right. Hold the breath out for a moment. Inhale right. Close off, release, exhale left. Hold the breath out for a moment. Bring the hand down when you're complete. Inhale. Fill the lungs to their capacity. Hold the breath in. Press your feet down. Squeeze your buttock and belly and hold outside of the constraints of time. Imagine you can hold your breath for an hour. Keep relaxing as the tension starts to build. Bring the left thumb up. Close off the left nostril. Exhale slowly out the right. Bring the hand down. Inhale again. Inflate the belly. Inflate the low back. Inflate the lungs fully. Lift the chest. Hold the breath in. And imagine you can hold in for hours. Squeeze and hold. Go deeper into the holding. Take the right thumb up. Close off the right nostril. Exhale down the left. Hold the breath out for a moment. Bring the hand down. Inhale again. Hold the breath in. Squeeze the buttock and belly and drop your mind down into your body. When it becomes uncomfortable, take the left thumb up, close off the left nostril, exhale slowly out the right. Stay with it. If you're shaking, just let it go. Ride it on out. You're fine. It'll go away. On the next inhale, bring the hand down. Inhale. Hold. This is the last one. So squeeze. Squeeze the gut. Metabolize fat, not sugar. Slight spark to the sympathetic branch of the autonomic system. When it becomes uncomfortable, bring the right thumb up and exhale as slowly as you can out the left nostril. Bring the hand down, close your eyes. And notice now what's happening. Notice you're barely breathing. Observe your mind. Go deeper into your mind on the next breath. Notice there's an absence of excessive questions or the noise of old answers. Visualize in your brain the serotonin, the norepinephrine, the dopamine, the anandamide, and the endorphins. For those of you using this for a work or corporate setting, notice the stressless environment internally. For those of you using this athletically, notice you're invincible and calm. There is no fear. Just be present. And notice your level of attention without straining to pay attention. And just keep smoothing out the surfaces. If you hit something bumpy, if you hit something jagged, Just smooth it out with the inhale. Know that we're all extremely powerful beings. Much more powerful than we give ourselves credit for. If at any time you feel like you've lost the flow or you've become stuck, just add a brief retention, a pause after the exhale or after the inhale, and see if that doesn't reset you right back into the flow state. Doesn't matter to me what you call it, whether you call it flow or whether you call it meditation or concentration. The bottom line is I want you to be happy. I want you to love your life and love yourself fully. I want you to be alive. And in this relaxed state, we are fully alive. And when you're fully alive, you don't really care what falls away or dies, because all that's real is this moment. All right, when you feel ready, just take a deep breath in and then exhale out through your mouth with a sigh. All right. So let's reconnect back from that. So that was just one technique. I have about 10 to 15 different techniques that I'd like to use to bring folks in the flow based on the anaerobic or aerobic activity you're doing normally that you would like to flow into, whether it's athletic or whether it's work. This was just one of the gates that we can use to take us into that next step of ourselves, where the part of ourselves that interferes with our creativity, that interferes with what we're trying to manifest, our love, the money, the energy, the relationships, the communication, can't interfere with the goodness that's resting in our heart, the goodness that's resting in our mind, and manifesting your true passion and purpose. So I invite you to use this breath at your desk at work. I invite you to use this breath control in the warm-ups of your athletic routine, because preparation really is the key. And if we can set the table using the pranayama or the breath control, the breath work, to allow the body's autonomic nervous system to reset from fight or flight to rest and digest, the neurochemicals of the brain will almost instantaneously follow along with what's happening in the body, and will release that need to control everything. And then when that disappears, something greater than ourselves will swim to the surface and begin to control us. And you'll begin to see how amazing it is to be in these human bodies, to have these human brains and have a human mind. And you'll be able to look at anything in your life and see the good in it and try to use that as fuel to motivate you to the next level of your success, the next level of happiness, the next level of joy or forgiveness, whatever needs to be there in the moment. When you're in flow, it will be there. If it doesn't need to be there, it won't be there. So practice this breath work all the time. It's a shortcut, but usually when we take shortcuts, we lose quality. Here, this type of a shortcut only increases quality and cuts down quantity. Because in flow, all there is quality. There is no quantity. Really, there might be quantity, but what we're actually focusing on as a species is quality. That's what we're really good at first. And if you take care of your quality, quantity will come to you. My name's Eddie Harrold. It was great to be with you tonight. I wish you all nothing but the best from coast to coast. So have a beautiful evening, and I'm going to be back on in about, I think, 3 weeks. I'm going to be doing a stressless webinar. I look forward to catching up with you then. You can always reach me at my website, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, all the social media, we're part of it. So thanks again for tuning in. I hope you got something out of this. Go be great.